We are on a 628 kilometer 4x4 expedition through South Africa's only mountain desert, the Richtersveld, a 7-day adventure through some extremely remote and inhospitable terrain, providing some of the most incredible camp spots and views you'll find anywhere on Earth. We are 5 days in, and this morning we find ourselves on the bank of the Orange River for the very last time as we prepare for some brutally hot conditions on our drive today. As was the case on our previous day's drive, we're planning to leave camp as late as possible to avoid having to sit in the scorching heat at our next camp. So it's another very slow morning here at Richtersveld.
This morning we got up extra early before the sunrise to enjoy these last few moments of reasonable temperatures before everything gets out of control. So yeah, hopefully it doesn't get too hot today, but from what we've seen over the last few days, it's pretty ominous, and we want to enjoy the peace of the morning before the 40-degree temperatures slam us in the face. Why is it the silence of the morning always has to be disturbed by an Egyptian goose? No matter where you go in the country.
With plenty of time to kill at camp, we get started on our morning's activities. Washing dishes, charging our many camera batteries, and making sure that our food for the day is organized. Our poor fridge has been working overtime trying to keep our food frozen, and we're glad to see that it's still alive. This dual compartment National Lunar has proven to be incredibly reliable so far, and with a 430 watt solar panel on our roof providing constant power, we never have to worry about using more energy than we produce, especially here where the sun is always shining.
So normally just before we hit the road we make a nice cup of coffee and put it in these Stanley flasks with these lids to keep in the car with us and just enjoy as we go, but it's hot, so we are going to do something a little bit different. We've made some ice blocks out of some Ziploc bags with some water, and we're going to be making some iced coffee. So nice cold milk, some ice. We've already made some AeroPress shots and put them inside these, so it should be good. Not everything of Temu is great. In fact, most of it is nonsense, but sometimes you find a gem and you just have to buy it. And one of my friends had bought one of these blower things, and I tried it out and I was amazed by it. Essentially, you turn it on at the back. It's got 3 power settings. You USB-C charge it, and then this thing blows like crazy. It's got these little turbine blades and everything, and turns out it's really useful for blowing all the sand out of the camper. So while it's nice and cool, we are just chilling at camp here, doing a bit of maintenance, making sure everything's clean. And this thing's almost better than carrying around a dustpan and broom. It just gets all the dust and nonsense out. Well, we've just left our camp at Richtersveld and we are making our way out of the Orange River basin and up into the mountains. So you're going to be seeing us gain quite a bit of elevation over the next few kilometers as we sort of climb up through this river valley in towards the more open high altitude areas here of the Richtersveld National Park. Originally, you'll see on your screen right now that our route in purple is supposed to take us up and then around direct to Kokerboomkloof, but I think for the sake of just extending our drive a bit and getting to camp a bit later when it's cooler, we're going to add Hakkiesdoring and Ganakorip, which is 2 other areas just off this main route. I did want to add those to the original route, but I just didn't want to drive more than we expected. But in the past few days we've actually managed our time really well, so let's give that a shot. But for now, let's focus on this lovely river valley, which looks like it's going to be a fun drive.
This mountain here is Richtersveld, which gives its name to the campsite below it. These mountains are made up of sharp sheets of rock, many of which have tumbled down the mountain to create quite a bumpy track, but as we move up the valley, this begins to change as we see the large boulders of the Richtersveld Mountains up ahead. These mountains will be the protagonists of today's adventure, so remember them.
To our left over here, you'll see a big area with like a giant flat rock. That is Echo Canyon, and we're going to be approaching it from the opposite side, where there's actually a road that goes up there and a viewpoint just before we get to Kokerboomkloof later today. So just thought I'd point that out. We're getting to see that from both sides, but we'll talk a bit more about it when we actually get there.
We notice a road forking off towards Echo Canyon and decide to make a spontaneous detour. But as we move further up the valley, the track disappears entirely, probably washed away in a flash flood. You're not supposed to leave the tracks in this park, a rule that is in place to protect the rare succulents in the area, so we decide to turn around and rejoin the main road.
So we've just crossed into, well, I wouldn't really call it another valley because we're not quite in the next valley yet, but we're in a little pass at the moment, just kind of maneuvering between the different hills in the area to get to the next valley. And it's a very scenic drive. We kind of just came out the previous valley, went over a little hill and just found ourselves winding our way down a little pass. So yeah, very cool. And the rocks here, it's like suddenly there's areas that are black, areas that are red, all kinds of different colors. So as usual, the Richtersveld, always some surprises.
Our original plan was to turn left at this junction and head straight towards our camp at Kokerboomkloof, but wanting to spend some more time exploring today, we instead turned right and on towards a loop that would take us down past Kokerboomkloof and then into a river valley that would take us past Hakkiesdoring and back towards the Springbokvlakte, where the landscape would change completely once again. This was a fun road to drive, with some sections featuring rocky passes and others taking us through dry riverbeds with soft sand and low brush. Every now and again we'd pass a blocked off road with a sign that said stock post. These are areas that the local Nama people are allowed to access in order to round up their goats that are free to graze here. It still blows my mind that there are people that put up with this heat to live out here.
This is insane. We've been driving for 2.5 hours this morning. We haven't seen a single vehicle, single person, nothing. We come here in the middle of nowhere, and next thing we know, there's a Mikey's hut, which is like the dwelling that the locals make, which is basically just a bunch of sticks and some reed mats draped over it, and someone's living out here in 47-degree heat. And I mean, we struggling to even get out of the vehicle because it's so hot. Like the heat hits you like that the moment you climb out, and here there are people living here, just sitting in a hut in the middle of nothing, looking after some goats. It's wild. Like that lifestyle is on another level. But that's how they've been living for thousands of years. So I suppose maybe they're just better adapted to it and they grow up like that. And there's probably some things they look at that we do, like they probably look at our busy lives and say, these people are crazy, living in cities, working all day, running around, not actually sitting and enjoying nature, having no understanding of the way that you know, the plants survive and the animals live, and you know what happens if you eat each of the plants. Like, it's just a different way of living, and it's very cool to see that people are still living like this, and that the environment around them is not changing.
The continually climbing temperatures are making us dread our arrival at camp, but for now we're just enjoying the drive, and up ahead we catch our first glimpse of Richtersveld, the highest mountain in the region.
This tree's solid. You can hear it sounds like it's like a rock almost. And it's very old. I remember when we were reading about these trees in the information center, they say how they're actually so slow growing, but you can see how big this tree is, so it's clearly been here a while. There's also a cool little nest in here, so obviously like birds and different creatures also call these trees home, which is so cool, especially in this climate. There's not many places to find shade and a cool place to sit, so these trees are very, very cool.
We continue moving south, following a track down the riverbed that should take us quite close to Rusenkiberg, but once again we find ourselves having to make a decision, as the road becomes extremely overgrown. This clearly hasn't been driven in a very long time, so we eventually decide not to push it too far, and we start looking for a spot to have lunch.
Alright, this is probably a great picnic spot right here. The only shady tree in the region. And shade is going to be really important if you want to spend any time out of a vehicle. Of course we could pop the awning out, but that's also work. And any work in this heat is not fun. So I think something simple for lunch will suffice, and we'll probably not be outside for too long.
We gulp down a very simple lunch in the shade of another very old tree, but even the shade is just too hot on a day like today, and it's not long before we're back in the comfort of the air conditioner, heading north.
Well, it's been about 4 hours and 20 minutes since we left our camp at Richtersveld this morning. We've just turned onto the road to Kokerboomkloof, and we probably have another hour or so of driving left, although we're going to take it as slow as we can. We do have the Echo Canyon viewpoint to go check out, and then if we do have plenty of time still, we might take a turn off to Springbokvlakte and check out that road also. But yeah, should be good. And it's just hit 50 degrees Celsius. Oh my word, 50 degrees. That is by far the hottest I've ever been in. That's wild. Probably not the best day to be staying underneath a bunch of rocks, but let's see how it goes.
Everything changes as we hit the Springbokvlakte, and at this point I really need to use some maps to put things into context because it's quite interesting. The previous day we had driven up to a place called Richtersveld, which saw us gain almost 700 meters elevation from the Orange River and took us up to a crazy landscape with towering boulders on all sides and very little vegetation aside from the odd quiver tree. Well, that was here, and this is where we're driving today. Richtersveld mountain is the central figure in the next portion of our drive, and we'll be driving to the base of Richtersveld, where we'll be able to look down over Echo Canyon before driving up to another incredible viewpoint and then taking one last loop around the Springbokvlakte before eventually heading to camp at Kokerboomkloof. At the bottom of the Springbokvlakte we can see Mount Terror to our south, but we'll be heading north up a long slope towards Echo Canyon.
The place that we find ourselves in right now is really cool because I feel like it kind of sums up everything that this area is about. minus the Orange River obviously, which is a big part of it. But where we stand right now, we have an amazing view of that row of mountains behind us there, which kind of divides the Richtersveld Community Conservancy with the Richtersveld National Park. The first few days of our trip all happened behind those mountains, and we've got some really cool footage of those mountains from literally the opposite side. And then where we are right now, directly in front of me here is Richtersveld, and behind this peak over here is the valley that we drove up, I think it was yesterday. Yeah, we came up yesterday up an amazing valley and saw this peak from the opposite side, so you'll see that in the map. And then this morning we came up that kloof over there as we left Richtersveld, and we saw the Echo Canyon viewpoint from that side. And then tonight we're staying at Kokerboomkloof, which is literally up here. So it really sums up everything. It's a really cool central spot, and if you ever come to this park, you definitely need to come to this point. The views in all directions are next level. So this is Echo Canyon, and I think that you needed to be calm to actually hear the echoes properly. We've tried to shout as loud as we can and we can't hear anything, but apparently on a calm day, if you stand here and shout, you'll hear echoes from all directions, which makes sense because the scale of these rocks is mind-blowing. Just massive slabs of, I think this is granite, maybe someone can correct me, but just, I mean, we drove past some slabs of granite that were just absolute monoliths, and it reminds me so much of Springbokvlakte in Namibia. If you haven't watched that episode, I'll link it down below. Go check out Springbokvlakte. But this view, I don't think I've seen anything like this anywhere in South Africa. It's insane. Probably the highlight so far of my of the Richtersveld National Park for me. It's so beautiful. You've got the valley floor down below. You've got layers and layers of massive mountains on the other side, and yeah, we're standing on a massive rock. So just a little bit of everything, and the geology of this place never ceases to amaze me. No words can describe this. It's really nice to have an app like Gaia GPS that labels all the different mountains and viewpoints, and has topographical layers and has satellite layers and all of that, because you can get a really good picture of where you are and where you've been. So I'm looking now down over this series of mountains here that I mentioned earlier divides the national park from the community conservancy on the other side, and I'm noticing some mountains down there that look quite familiar. And in that direction, there's a series of flat mountains, and right between them runs the Orange River. And a few years ago, when we did the Orange River rafting, there was one particular camp between really high mountains that I still to this day feel like is one of the most beautiful scenes I've ever seen, and one of the most beautiful places I've ever camped, right on the border of South Africa and Namibia, with just towering mountains on either side. And yeah, it's right there. I can see it with my own eyes. It's just really cool to have different perspectives of these things, and yeah, really cool to see it on Gaia GPS as well. I'll put an insert in here of the screen recording I have so you can see exactly what I'm looking at. But look at this view. You just can't beat that.
We reach the highest point of our drive today at 719 meters above sea level, but eventually start descending again. With more time to kill, we make our way around a series of hills and decide to do a loop, which will allow us to see more of the Springbokvlakte and get a closer view of Ossenko, a town in Namibia just across the Orange River at the bottom of this valley. Ossenko is not a new place for us. This was the extraction point when we did our Orange River rafting trip back in 2019, and looking down at the river and the vineyards brings back some really good memories.
It's interesting to see how the temperature changes with elevation. We've just taken a little offshoot here just to waste some more time before the sun goes down towards Ossenko on this long slow slope, and the temperature is climbing again. So earlier when we were in the lower altitude areas, we got to 50 degrees, then we climbed all the way up to the lookout points that we went to, and it dropped like 11 degrees to 39 degrees. 39 degrees, and then it's climbed steadily down to up to 43 as we've descended again. So hopefully up at Kokerboomkloof, where the elevation's pretty high, the temperature will be a little bit lower than it is down here, but I guess that is to be found later on.
This road mainly exists to serve a mine in the area, and there wasn't much to see in the Springbokvlakte, not even Springbok. So we made the decision to head back to camp. As we leave the Springbokvlakte in our dust, the terrain becomes very rocky once again, and we start to see signs of life. These klipspringers are very at home in this crazy environment, and we probably would never have spotted them if they hadn't moved. They are exactly the same color as the rocks. If you're wondering why this place is called Kokerboomkloof, a kokerboom is just another name for a quiver tree, and as we near camp, they just appear out of nowhere. Not just one or two quiver trees, but many quiver trees. Lots and lots of quiver trees.
Yo, this is actually so nice.
Oh my word, this place is so much better than I expected. I mean, I knew it would be cool, but this is so much like Spitskoppe, with all these massive rocks around us, sweeping views, and surprisingly, not that hot. I don't know if it's just that we're in the shade here and we've been in this area, would have been in the shade for a while, or maybe it's just, maybe the temperature's just dropped, but it's very, very comfortable, so I think we're going to be all right. We have the entire valley to ourselves. This is all ours to enjoy, and we were going to make the opportunity count. With the temperatures dropping, we find ourselves injected with some new energy, and we set to work preparing for another amazing evening in paradise.
So, for dinner, we're going to be braaiing once more, but we're going to braai much more than we need, because we've got some chicken espetadas that we're going to be able to keep aside for tomorrow, and then turn into some chicken wraps with some mayo. So we got some of these, we've got some lamb riblets, and I think there's some chicken sausages in here also.
A figure on top of the rocks catches my eye, and it's not a Dussie, it's my wife, beckoning to me to come watch the sunset.
Talking about saving the best for last, I thought that it was impossible to beat the campsites on the Orange River, but I dare say this may be better. That's a big claim. Nicole's shaking her head, but this is incredible. The quiver trees just lining the floor of this place, mountains all around us. You can see the valley running all the way down, cutting through the mountains all the way to the Orange River Basin, and Namibia on the other side with some nice pointy mountains on that side, and then just crazy rock structures everywhere. It's super cool. Yeah, I don't know how to put it into words. You just have to come here for yourself.
Nicole had the vision to put some oranges in the fridge. Best decision ever. So refreshing. With a long day behind us and another long day ahead of us, our dinner is short and sweet. A braai between the giant boulders of Kokerboomkloof and the barking geckos calling in the background. Tomorrow we'll be waving goodbye to the Richtersveld National Park and heading back into the Community Conservancy via a series of iconic mountain passes to wrap up the series. Make sure you're subscribed and we'll see you then.